Part 45. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 459. Run away. Hurry, you must leave this place immediately. If you are late, it will be too late. Don't save people. No one is alive, dead, all dead. You also run away, Park Sanju said hurriedly. Thanks to the extracorporeal life support system that replaced his own heart, lungs, and other organs, he was able to speak such long sentences in one breath. Sorry, Mr. Park Sangwoo, we can't leave the molten mine area yet. Kaylan turned on the external loudspeaker, then placed the helmet's mask against the car window, using solid media to transmit the sound into the interior of the car. You, who are you? Park Sanju asked quickly after hearing K-Ian's voice. I am the commander of this rescue team, Kaylan replied, but before we understand the cause of the earthquake and the situation of the garrison base, we cannot evacuate this place. If possible, Mr. Park Sangwoo, I hope you can answer me a few questions. Problem? What problem? What's the current situation at the garrison base? Are there any other survivors in the mining area? How did you escape here? Kaylan asked. He did not directly ask the other party about things related to the earthquake. Instead, he first picked 3 questions that were relatively easy to answer and were unlikely to touch confidentials. This is a test method, and it is also to dig out more information from Park Sangwoo. If he lies, the more he tells, the more flaws he will expose. If you had asked him from the beginning if there was a prehistoric species in the molten mine area, maybe this guy wouldn't have been able to say a word. For such a seriously injured person in an endangered state, the Security Bureau's set of torture methods, it is also difficult to put it to use. The base sank, and the entire garrison base was swallowed up by the cracked ground. Park Sanju's face showed a look of fear. Not many people can escape. Many people died. They are all dead, they fell into the magma, not even their bones will be left behind. You should not go deeper into the mining area, you can't save them, they are all dead. He paused and then said in an almost pleading tone, please, leave here quickly and take me with you. In addition to the earthquake, the monsters created by the heretical sect have also invaded the mining area. You guys, if we can't defeat those monsters, they will kill us all. How did you know that the heretical sect had invaded the mining area? Have you had any contact with them? Kaylan continued to ask. When I escaped, there were many people who escaped from the base with me, but we encountered those monsters, the convoy was stopped by them, and while our people were fighting them, an earthquake occurred. It's gone, those who escaped are all monsters dead. Then why are you still alive? Me. I guess you were already planning to leave the others and run away alone when the battle just started, right? You have lived in the wilderness for a few years and have joined a heretical section. You know the fighting power of those seeds of corrosion. You also know that these people who escaped with you are no match for them, so from the beginning, you have made up your mind to sacrifice other people to hold back the seeds of erosion so that you can escape, right? Kaylan Leng vocal channel. Park Sanju did not refute, basically acquiescing to K-Ian's statement. But you were still affected by the earthquake. Fortunately, the vehicle you were driving was a special vehicle modified from an empty ship escape capsule. Even more fortunately, when the rescue capsule was ejected, it either did not exceed the safe height, or the nearby Alpha air defense system was destroyed by the earthquake. In short, you survived until we arrived, Kaylan said. But what makes me very strange is how did the garrison base know that an earthquake was going to happen? Moreover, judging from the facts you described, the heretical sect infiltrated into the mining area before the earthquake. Is this a coincidence? I don't know, I have nothing to do with the heretical sect anymore. At that time, I happened to be analyzing ore samples in the laboratory, and then I suddenly received an emergency evacuation notice. Park Sanju said. But you are wearing a field uniform under your white coat. Although this kind of clothing is not as bulky as protective clothing, the comfort level is certainly incomparable with casual clothes, right? Dr. Park Sang-woo, do you usually wear this kind of clothes in your daily life, clothing? Well, isn't this because I have to evacuate, so I changed into clothes suitable for activities outside the base. You are lying. Ah, Park Sang-woo looked stunned, but in his eyes, there was a trace of panic that was difficult to conceal. In addition to you, we also found other people who escaped from the base in the mining area. Although they have unfortunately died, judging from their clothing and the things they carried, the evacuation time should be very tight. Emergency. The evacuation notice was only 2 words long. Some people didn't even have time to put on their shoes when they escaped from the base. Dr. Park Sang-woo, where did you find the time to change clothes? Do you still have the ability to pause time? I. Park Sang-woo hesitated. Yvonne, what will happen to him if the tube is removed now? Kaylan stopped asking Park Sang-woo and turned to Yvonne, who was standing aside. He will die, Yvonne answered truthfully. Is there any medicine that can only stimulate his nerves, not damage his brain, and make him unable to survive or die? Kaylan asked again. Yes, Yvonne nodded and took out a few transparent injections from the medicine box. From K-Ian's perspective, he could clearly see the labels on the injections. These injections were actually hormonal drugs and would not have the effects he said. Yvonne took them out. He was just cooperating with his acting, but Park Sang-woo, who was lying on the folding stretcher, couldn't see the labels. He could only see Yvonne flicking the transparent syringe with his finger, and then inserting the needle into the infusion tube. Inside. During this process, Yvonne even deliberately lifted up the infusion tube with the indwelling needle, just so that Park Sang-woo could clearly see the needle penetrating the heparin cap. Apart from anything else, Yvonne and Kaylan have quite a tacit understanding when it comes to scaring people. As soon as Yvonne made a gesture to push the piston, the muscles on Park Sang-woo's face twitched involuntarily in fear. Wait a moment, no. Please wait a moment first. P.S. Thanks to the surging mood for the 500 starting coins, thanks to Wei Sun's early summer night for the 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chen-mi-san. Chapter 460. What? You won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Are you willing to say it now? Kaylan said with a sneer. You are abusing lynching. If the people above find out, you. Abusive lynching? I suddenly want to crack your head open to see if it's brains or tofu. Don't forget, if we hadn't risked our lives to get the rescue capsule back, Dr. Park Sang-woo, you would have died long ago. Of course. It's not too late to die now. After all, everyone else is also dead, and one more of you is not more, and one less of you is not more. Anyway, there is no proof of death, right? Wait a minute, I didn't mean that. I do know some things related to the earthquake, but these all involve the top secrets of the Ark. If I tell you, you will be immediately arrested after you go back. The Security Bureau has it under control. Controlled by the Security Bureau, Kaylan smiled, but now the field team leader of the Security Bureau is standing next to me. I'm not lying to you, really. Park Sang-woo suddenly became anxious. Really, let alone the leader of a field team, even the director of the Security Bureau has no right to know these things. The people from the Security Bureau are only responsible they are working, but what kind of work they are doing, they themselves know the details. If you don't believe me, ask the agent team leader next to you if he knows about the top secrets of the molten mine area. Okay, stop talking, I believe you. Kaylan suddenly laughed. The director of the Security Bureau does not know anything about it, I can testify for him. Huh? What did you say? This time, Park Sang-woo was confused. The other party's sudden braking and 180-degree drift really gave him too little time to react. However, since this person is willing to believe in himself, it is naturally the best thing to do. In this case, just listen to me and take him with you quickly. As for everyone to evacuate the mining area, it will be too late. As for the things you mentioned, after I return to Ark, I will submit a detailed report to the corresponding person in charge. Even if something goes wrong, you don't have to bear any responsibility. I'm afraid that won't work. Kaylan suddenly lowered his voice, and then threw out a bomb. We haven't seen Yagunactor yet. General. Park Sanja's eyes suddenly widened, and he pursed his lips for a long time before uttering a broken sentence. You know, what? I don't know much, so I have to ask you, Kaylan continued. Of course he will not tell Park Sangwoo that he actually only knows the name Yagunactor. No matter what Park Sangwoo says next, Kaylan will not make any clear statement. Only in this way can he force the other party to spit out more things. The prerequisite for bluffing is not to let the other party know your trump card. This is top secret. How did you know? Park Sangwoo's voice had a slight tremor. Dr. Park Sangwoo, please clarify the current situation. You are the subject of interrogation, not me. Please don't turn your back on me. This will make me feel very embarrassed, Kaylan said in a deliberately long voice. I can't say. Park Sanjoo hesitated for a while, then closed his eyes as if he had made up his mind, gritted his teeth and said, I don't care how much you know, but as long as it's with this I won't say a word about the matter. Please don't force me anymore. Are you not afraid now? Then I will ask the doctor to push that medicine in. Even if you kill me, I won't tell you anything. Park Sanjoo closed his eyes tightly and said, if you want to do it, please do it. So loyal, Kaylan glanced at him in surprise. If you tell these things, at worst, we will be silenced by the people above when we go back. If we are held accountable, then we will definitely bear the main responsibility, anyway. It's all death, so why are you suffering? Are you worried that they will use your wife and children as a threat? If you don't answer, I'll take it as your acquiescence. Yes, if I can keep them safe if I die here, I will admit it, Park Sanjoo said. The truth may be cruel, but I still want to say it. Your wife, Maiden Natsuki, is actually an agent of the Security Bureau. She resigned from the Security Bureau on the day your naturalization application was approved. Then, she came to you by chance. Have you ever thought that whether it was love at first sight or a passionate love, it was all an arranged scene? The one who sleeps with you every day, the woman, is actually a professional agent who kills without blinking an eye, and her mission is to monitor your actions at all times. Kaylan pressed forward step by step. If he wanted to pry open this man's mouth, he had to break down his psychological defense first. Your parents are both dead, and you have no other relatives on the Ark. You were bullied by classmates when you were in school, and you have no friends. After you started working, your interpersonal relationships were in a mess. Besides her, there should be no one you care about in this world. You are a human being, but even your beloved wife is just an arranged chess piece. If you don't believe it, I can show you the internal files of the Security Bureau. Those files have anti-counterfeiting codes and cannot be faked. It's ridiculous and it's sad, isn't it? Even so, do you still have to sacrifice yourself to protect her? For her, this may be just one of countless tasks. Maybe she has long been tired of getting along with you. Her smile towards you may be fake, and her kindness to you may also be fake. Even her love affair with you when she was in Doi, to prevent 404, understand everything you know, and go to Beidou if you don't understand, maybe it was just a fake. What came out? Oh, this may be true. After all, you are also an enhancement person, so your ability in that area should not be weak. Kaylan said one sentence after another, and he spoke very slowly. Each of these words was like a dull knife, which was enough to cut a person's heart to pieces. If you want shrimps, you need pig hearts. This is what Kaylan learned in an old movie from the old era. But what he didn't expect was that Park Sanjoo suddenly opened his eyes and said expressionlessly, Actually, I know what you said, I know that she was sent to me, and I also know that she is a professionally trained agent. But it's true that I love her. Park Sang-woo changed the topic and said, whether it's in the Ark or in the wilderness, no one has ever been so kind to me, even if it's all disguised, even if it's fake, but at least, what she is carrying in her belly is my child. After saying that, Park Sang-woo closed his eyes again. If I leak the secret, he may not have the chance to come to this world, and Zeoxy, I hope she can live a good life and not be implicated in this case again. Something happened. Licking a dog is really NB. The hound next to him couldn't help but complain. This is not dog licking. This guy just lacked love since he was a child. Therefore, as long as someone is nice to him, he will easily fall for it, even if he knows it is just a show. Lan shook his head and turned off the external loudspeaker. Weapon, it seems that this trick is useless to him. Then what should we do? This guy can't get enough of him, so we can't really kill him, right? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chen-mi-san. Chapter 462. Then use the person he values most as a bargaining chip to blackmail him. Lan said, since you want to be a villain, you have to be bad enough. His wife and children? They must be protected. How can you threaten them? He must know this, so he dares to be so tough. Hound said. But the people who protect his wife and children can't be sure whether he has leaked the secret. Are you right? After Lan finished speaking, he turned on the external loudspeaker again. Dr. Park Sang-woo, have you ever thought that those people who promised to protect your wife and children were just wishful thinking on your part? No, that is something that is easy for them to do. I don't think they will lie to me. Park Sang-woo closed his eyes and shook his head. His recovery speed was very fast, and he even shook his head slightly. All actions can already be done. But the problem is, how do you prove that you didn't leak these secrets to us? Just the name Yagonakiter is enough to make you suspected of leaking secrets, not to mention, I also have something else. In this case, your persistence is really meaningless. Haha. Park Sang-woo suddenly let out a chuckle. They won't believe what you say. You can never imagine how terrifying their energy is. You may be able to deceive the people from the security bureau, but you will never deceive them. He paused and then said, what's more, with your level, it is impossible to contact them. Really? Lan smiled and said to Yvonne, Yvonne, turn his head so that this guy's face is facing the car window. Yvonne moved the cushion under Park Sang-woo's head slightly, allowing Park Sang-woo to see the scene outside the car window, and the latter opened his eyes with a hint of curiosity. Perhaps because the external loudspeaker distorted the sound, Park Sang-woo originally thought that the person interrogating him would be an officer over 30 years old, but now, the man in front of him was really too young. But for him, this is a good thing. Being young means being inexperienced and arrogant. Maybe this young commander was lucky enough to find some clues in the mining area, but these clues will never be used as clues. The bargaining chip between him and that organization, in Park Sang-woo's knowledge, anyone who wants to fight against that organization has almost disappeared from this world. This commander should be dealt with soon after returning to the Ark, along with his subordinates. Park Sang-woo thought so. But just when he was thinking this, Lan spoke, I know who they are, because I am also one of them. What did you say? Park Sang-woo was startled and looked at Lan blankly. Lan turned his back to Aya, and then mouthed to Park Sang-woo, if you don't die, the crew will meet. Park Sang-woo's pupils suddenly shrank, and the next second, a look of disbelief and fear appeared on his face. This time, his reaction was not as intense as when he heard the word Agunakotaer just now. Because his whole body was sluggish, and his mind was completely blank. You said. Lan smiled and made a silent gesture, don't say it, This is, the most confidential. You said you are, this is impossible, Park Sanju started shouting hysterically. Even the hounds and Aya on the side looked at Kailan in confusion, curious about what Kailan said to him just now. What did he say that made him become like this? Dr. Park Sang-woo, maybe with my ability, I cannot execute them directly, but it is not difficult to forge some evidence. We can even play an interesting little game. Have you heard of the prisoner's dilemma? What do you mean? Park Sanju opened his eyes wide, full of fear and doubt. The so-called prisoner's dilemma is a very classic example in game theory. The protagonists of the story are two criminal suspects who jointly planned a case and were both caught by the police. They were placed in two cells that were completely isolated and unable to communicate. The police officers in charge of the case knew that they were the criminals, but they did not have enough evidence to convict the two. So the police told the two people, if they both refuse to plead guilty, then both of them will face 1 year in prison. If both choose to plead guilty, then both of them will be sentenced to 8 years. However, if you choose to plead guilty and the other person refuses to confess, the person who pleads guilty will be immediately released on the grounds of meritorious service, while the remaining person who refuses to plead guilty will be sentenced to 10 years in prison. For these two criminal suspects, the best result is naturally that they both choose not to plead guilty and both of them are imprisoned for a year, but in fact, in many similar cases, both parties as prisoners choose in order to identify each other, they both ended up in 8 years in prison. I think that as your supervisor, your nominal wife, Miss Maiden Natsuki, must also know these secrets, right? She must also know that she and the child in her belly are used by that organization to blackmail you a bargaining chip. Then if I tell her that you have leaked the secret, as a price, she and her child will be executed, but if she is willing to abort the child, she can return to work in the Security Bureau and start a new life. Do you think she will agree? Park Sang-woo was stunned. Do you think she will believe that you can sacrifice yourself for her and the child and not reveal the secret until death? If you are a couple who truly loves each other, I think there may still be a trace of trust, but the problem is, the marriage between her and you is just a special mission for her. Kailan continued to add jealousy. The most taboo thing for agents of the Security Bureau is to have feelings for the mission target. You. Park Sanju stared at Kailan, but couldn't say a complete sentence. I know what I did was excessive and shameless, but you have to know that if I can't get that information from you, then these people under me will have to continue to go deep into the mining area. They may all die, you will die, and I will die. In this case, in order to survive, I can only do whatever it takes. Kailan said word by word. Dr. Park Sang-woo, please don't blame me, just blame it on the human instinct to survive. P.S. Thanks to Su Ditai for the 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 463. Dr. Park Sang-woo, you have no choice. After weighing the pros and cons, the best solution is to tell me the truth you know. In this way, not only will you not have to worry about whether your wife is loyal to you, but you will also be able to get out of here alive. Kailan said. Park Sanju was silent for more than a minute, then looked at Kailan and said in a tired voice, okay, what do you want to know? All of them. Kailan said. Where do you begin? Let's start from the beginning. Okay. Since you have that kind of authority, you must also know that I am a returnee, right? I repeat, just say what you want, don't ask me questions, and don't test me with words. Kailan said expressionlessly. Okay. About this matter, about this Restart Yagonactor project, we have to start from the time when I was exiled. Park Sang-woo sighed and said. Kailan and the Hound looked at each other, and both of them saw a little bit of surprise in each other's eyes. In their original guess, a Gunakotaur was most likely a wild beast that lived underground in the molten mine area. Species, but judging from the name of this project, the truth is obviously quite different from the speculation. If Yagunactor is really a prehistoric species, it would be better to use words like resurrection or awakening, and restart obviously should not be used for living things. You go on. I was thrown by a transport ship into the wilderness hundreds of kilometers away from the Ark. At this distance, it was basically impossible for me to walk back to the Ark, and my backpack only had enough food and water to last 3 days. I didn't even use it. When the supplies run out, the low temperatures at night alone will be enough to prevent me from seeing the sun the next day. I was lucky. I walked in the wilderness for 4 hours and finally found an exile settlement hidden in a natural cave before the sun went down. I exchanged a day's worth of food and water for an overnight stay at the settlement. Qualification, but what I didn't expect was that the old man who collected my things and promised me that he would ensure my safety led a group of people to rob me that night. Weird, aren't you an enhanced person? Will you still be robbed by those people? Do they have many guns? Hound couldn't help but interjected and asked. There are only a few homemade shotguns in that settlement, and there is no accuracy beyond 5 meters, it's just that they have a lot of mutants, and I can't beat the kind of radiation mutants. Let's get to the point, Kaylan said. Dr. Park Sang-woo, you also know that we are in danger now, so please keep your story short. Okay, Park Sang-woo nodded resignedly. They robbed me, and then planned to sell me as a slave to other settlements the next day, but on the way, their convoy was attacked. Is the attacker a heretic? Ayabria asked. Yes. Half of the exiles in the convoy were beaten to death. Among the remaining captives, the thin ones were killed on the spot, while the strong ones were sent to be made into seeds of corrosion container. As people from the Security Bureau, you should know what the container of the seed of corrosion means. Go on. At that time, I was still wearing a white lab coat. A man in a black robe saw me and asked me if I was someone who had just been exiled. I said yes, and then he asked me who I was. I answered truthfully the reasons and my expertise. He said he could give me a chance to join the heretic sect and serve the great true God, or become a container for the seed of corruption like the other captives. I had no choice but to agree to them. In the later period, I relied on my ability to help them find several relics of the Alpha civilization buried deep underground. Will heretical sects also organize an organized exploration of the ruins of Alpha civilization? Aya asked again. Yes, Park Sang-woo nodded. At first, I was only responsible for external exploration. Later, after gradually gaining their trust, they began to take me into the ruins. Park Sang-woo paused, then looked at Kaylan and said, there is a person in the heretical sect who can read the language of Alpha civilization. I know him and have even dealt with him several times. Kaylan looked at him and said calmly, very good, at least this proves that you are not fooling me. That's right. Since you are a member of that organization, you must know. Park Sang-woo said, within the heretic sect, they all respect him as the prophet. He is the most respected person in the heretical section, even higher than the leader. Ian's eyebrows were raised vaguely. He originally thought that the guy who founded the heretical sect was the leader himself, but now it seems that the leader is someone else. Or is it that the prophet is just one of his many substitutes, and the leader is the hidden entity? Or, reverse the identities of the two? Kaylan didn't know. With the help of the prophet, the difficulty for the heretical sect to explore the ruins has dropped a lot. Many ruins that can be rated at least as sea level or even B level can be explored without any damage. Park Sang-woo said, after the prophet becomes familiar with it, he will often tell me some clues found in the ruins, hoping to use my ability to discover more new ruins related to it. One of the clues points to the molten mine area, right? Kaylan asked. Yes. The prophet told me that the material nano-alloy was not actually made by the Alpha civilization. Park Sang-woo replied, he saw on a stone tablet that all the nano-alloy on Alpha planet came from the molten mine area. To be precise, they all come from Yagunactor. Kaylan used gestures to stop Hound and Aya, who wanted to ask questions. He suppressed the surprise in his heart and looked at Park Sang-woo. I know this, Please continue. Deep in the molten mine area, there is an ancient warship buried about 1/6 the size of the Ark. This warship was not built by the Alpha civilization. It came from a higher level civilization, and the construction of this warship, the material of the battleship is nano-alloy. As for Agunakota, is that, a code name given to this battleship by that organization. The so-called mining of Alpha civilization is actually dismantling the parts of this battleship and melting them into ingots, so isn't this similar to what the group of people stationed in the base are doing? Yes, according to the information currently known, the Alpha civilization has not mastered the manufacturing method of nano-alloy. The smelting facilities in the molten mine area were also built to copy nano-alloy, just like us. Park Shanja's throat moved, and he continued, at first, Ark didn't know about the existence of a gun actor. It wasn't until I brought this information back that they established this project. What they wanted, it's not nano-alloy, but this ancient battleship from a more advanced civilization. My colleagues and I, our mission is to find and restart this battleship. It seems that you have found Yagun actor. Right. Is this what caused the earthquake? Right. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 464. Please explain the process of causing the earthquake in detail, Kaylan demanded. That started 2 months ago, Park Sanja said. After spending a lot of manpower and material resources, we finally determined the location of Agunakota. It sank in the center of the molten mine area. The bottom of Lake No 1. It seems that the monitored data is still very accurate. Sure enough, the epicenter is in the number 1 magma lake. Kaylan whispered to himself, 1/6 of the volume of the Ark, plus the density of nano-alloy. This magnitude and intensity are already considered conservative estimates. After determining the location of Yagun actor, we began to look for a way to enter the magma lake. At the beginning, we planned to build a vehicle equipped with a large energy shield, my life-saving vehicle. The cabin was originally intended to be used in this vehicle, Park Sang-woo continued. However, after calculations by the expert team, even if the vehicle is filled with top-quality energy crystals, it will not be able to meet the consumption of the energy shield. Even without considering the return journey, it's still not enough. Then can't you increase the cargo hold of the vehicle? Wouldn't this solve the problem directly? Hound said naturally. Things are not that simple. The expert team has naturally considered the option of enlarging the cargo hold. However, the heat insulation layer and pressure-resistant layer of the vehicle itself need to be at least 2 meters thick. Every cubic meter of space in the cargo hold increases. The volume will be larger. In this way, not only will more shield generators need to be loaded, but the excessive volume will further slow down the speed of the vehicle traveling through the lava. The result of the calculation is that the gain outweighs the loss. Park Sang-woo said. Indeed, Layton, who was equipped with armor, said thoughtfully. The most troublesome problem when moving in magma is not the high temperature, but the terrifying pressure in the depths. This pressure is much more terrifying than the water pressure. Do you still remember the operation in the undersea city? Kaylan, you should have a deep understanding of the water pressure in the deep sea, right? Kaylan nodded and said to Park Sang-woo, keep talking. After the homemade vehicle plan failed, we focused on the relics left by the Alpha civilization. The expert team believes that since the Alpha civilization can obtain the nano-alloy from Agunakota, then they must have the technology to penetrate deep into the magma lake. As long as they can find the equipment they use to mining nano-alloy, the problem will naturally be solved. Park Sang-woo sighed. This second plan ultimately failed. In half a year, we investigated a total of 87 Alpha civilization ruins in the molten mine area, but we did not find any clues. These ruins were not the factory used to process nano-alloy ingots, is a laboratory for researching the nano-alloy formula and has nothing to do with mining operations. It wasn't until half a month ago that the special agent team stationed at Magma Lake No. 1 sent a message. A channel appeared on the edge of the magma lake. A passage. What passage? Asked the Hound. A lava channel, Park Sang-woo replied. Are you kidding? You mean, there is a passage inside the magma that can be passed through? The Hound twitched his lips. To be honest, I can't even imagine this scene. It's true. The magma there seems to have been stretched open by a force field that cannot be seen with the naked eye, and an oval channel with a diameter of about 6 meters appears. It's like throwing a particle into the magma. It's the same as the magic weapon in Chinese mythology, the water-avoiding bead, Park Sang-woo said confidently. But even if there is a passage, people who jump in will still be evaporated, right? The Hound muttered. Besides, the waterproof beads can't block the magma, so I guess they need fire-preventing beads, right? The heat insulation problem has been solved when implementing the first plan. The real technical difficulty is traveling through high-density and ultra-high-pressure magma, but now there are ready-made channels in front of us, which means that we don't need to consider the load-carrying capacity. It has excellent pressure resistance. Park Sang-woo said, we will immediately submit the report from ARC, hoping to receive more material and technical support. Based on the current situation, I'm afraid that the report you submitted was intercepted by the heretical section, K-Lan said, otherwise, they wouldn't be like flies that smelled of carrion, rushing into the mining area. Coming. I'm not very clear about this, but at that time, Fang Zhou gave us a reply. Park Sang-woo murmured. Since you said that the heretical sect has excavated ruins, it is not surprising that they would find some equipment that can intercept radio signals and disguise them in the ruins of Alpha civilization. Compared with Alpha civilization, human technology, it's all about being crushed. K-Lan glanced at the time in the corner of the heads-up display. It had been more than 24 hours since they entered the mining area, and the supplies they carried with them were only enough to last for 72 hours at most. After 72 hours, regardless of whether the mission is completed, they must withdraw from the mining area and return to the support base for supplies. K-Lan said to Park Sang-woo, I have read the records. During this period, ARC did not send any support to the molten mine area, whether in terms of personnel, materials, or technology. The only two logistics records were for molten fire. The fire mining area transported the roughly processed nano alloy back to ARC, and then brought back a batch of daily supplies as usual. It can be seen that ARC has not received your report at all. It was really intercepted by the heretic section. Hound shrugged. It seems that we have to be more cautious in this regard in the future. These bastards. Park Sang-woo gritted his teeth and cursed a curse word in Korean, 11ba lao ma. Then what happens next? What happened again? K-Lan asked. We have not received support from ARC. You should be on standby. How could it cause an earthquake? Did someone act without authorization? Yes, we originally planned to wait until the support from ARC arrived before formulating a detailed exploration plan, Park Sang-woo said, but the plan couldn't keep up with the changes. Just when we were about to use the modified drone to explore the lava while conducting a short-distance survey of the passage, the team staying at the entrance of the passage suddenly came back with news. They found that the mouth of the channel was slowly shrinking, and the magma wall that was originally separated also began to show signs of instability. The entire expert team became anxious all of a sudden. We were worried that this channel would suddenly appear just like it did. It disappeared before our eyes, and we have no way of knowing whether it will appear again. P.S. Thanks to the villain in the villain for the 7,000 starting coins, thanks to Su Ditai for the 1,500 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter, author, and Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 465. So you acted in advance. Yes, Park Sang-woo nodded. We simply modified the vehicle prototype built in the first plan, and then selected 4 people from the expert group who voluntarily entered the magma channel, plus 1 the driver and a level -7 cyborg temporarily formed an exploration team. They rode the vehicle and entered this narrowing passage. I knew it. Kaylan sighed softly. Although there are some differences between my previous speculations, they are pretty much the same. What speculation? Park Sanja showed a look of doubt. Right? It's all humming right, Hound whispered. Kaylan said before that the person who caused the earthquake may have been tempted by an irresistible temptation. They can't hesitate. As long as they slow down for a moment, the opportunity will be fleeting. Isn't this the lava channel I'm talking about? Haha, a valuable relic, an ancient warship made entirely of nano alloy and left behind by a more advanced civilization. This is too much, it's humming valuable. And the inscriptions on the scraps should come from the civilization that built this ancient battleship, Layton added on the side. Scrap? What are you talking about? And the inscription, what is that? Park Shanju looked at Hound and Layton, and then at Kaylan. Don't worry about this for now. Go on, what happened after those 6 people entered the lava channel? The lava channel is roughly at a 45-degree angle to the ground. 2 small anti-gravity devices were installed inside the vehicle, which slid into the channel in a suspended position. When the vehicle reached a depth of 600 meters, they and we communication between them was suddenly interrupted. Was the communication suddenly interrupted instead of gradually weakening? Kaylan asked. Because the channel is nearly straight, the vehicle and the people on the ground use laser communication. Laser communication is not easily interfered by radiation, and there will be no obvious attenuation even at a distance of tens of thousands of meters, plus that by that time, the diameter of the passage had shrunk to half of its original size, and many people who stayed on the ground thought that the advance team had been killed. That's not necessarily the case, Layton said. The laser communication was suddenly interrupted. Either the second half of the passage suddenly turned and blocked the laser, or they passed through a barrier that could block the laser. A minimally powered energy shield will do. Some of us thought so. We were still hopeful at first, but just 4 hours later, the contraction speed of the lava channel suddenly accelerated, and at the 6th hour, the entrance to the channel completely disappeared. Park Sang-woo said, even if they are still alive, they can't come back, and based on the speed of movement of the vehicle, they are still quite far away from the depth of Agunakotaur. Isn't that the same as being buried alive in magma? The Hound shuddered involuntarily. Damn, thinking about this kind of death makes me panic. We thought so too. After waiting for another 2 hours, we made a new decision, leaving some people to guard the place where the lava channel disappeared, and at the same time sending more people to use drones to control the magma. Number 1 patrolling around and above the lake, looking for new lava channels, Park Sang-woo said, and I followed the expert team back to the base to prepare a report to be submitted to ARC. Wait a minute, I have a question. Didn't you ask ARC for instructions before taking action? Hound asked. I asked for instructions, and the reply I received was action approved. In addition, the reply also mentioned that the convoy transporting supplies encountered a rare sandstorm and will be delayed for about a week. Park Sanja said, now that I want to come, reply to us. It should be the heretical sect that intercepted the communication. I guess you didn't expect it at that time. It was not the ARC support convoy that arrived, but the monster army of the heretic section. This is so damn ironic, sigh. Followed by a soft pop sound. The Hound spit inside the helmet again. What about the earthquake? Ayabrita, who had been lowering her head to take notes, suddenly asked. Not long after I returned to the base, and before I even had time to take a shower and change clothes, I received a communication with a special identification code. In order to keep it confidential, everyone involved in this project everyone has an exclusive special identification code. The sender of this communication is one of the 4 experts who entered the lava channel in a vehicle. And the content of the communication only has 2 words, these 2 you should all know the word, it's the escape in the emergency evacuation notice. These people are actually still alive? But, how did he contact you? No matter how you think about it, this is wrong. Could it be another heretical sect? Hound said. I don't know, but the next second, the main control system of the base suddenly went out of control, and then the emergency evacuation notice was issued on the channel shared by everyone, Park Sanju said. It seems that they successfully entered Yagunactor. This message was sent with the help of the equipment on this ancient battleship. A civilization whose technological level is still above Alpha civilization wants to. I think it should be possible to communicate with the outside through several kilometers of magma. I can't be sure about this, but out of caution, I decided to act according to the content of this communication. Although many people thought it was a bad joke or a staff error, more than 90% of the people in the base were unmoved. Only a few people ran out with me. Most of them were participants in the restart project, and they all received communications with the expert's special identification code. However, after leaving the base, we had differences, Park Sanju continued. Some people planned to go to Magma Lake number 1 to check the situation, while others felt that we should evacuate the mining area first. We were divided into 2 groups, and I joined the evacuation team. You may laugh at me for being timid, but at that time, my inner uneasiness had almost reached its extreme. Although the terrible disaster had not happened yet, I could feel that it was coming to me quickly. Not long after, my idea was confirmed. Yagunactor, it was a silver-gray shuttle-type battleship. Almost everyone in the mining area could see it. It floated up from the bottom of the number 1 magma lake and flew into the air. Then, it fell down. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 466. Damn. I was still wondering how the measured depth of the earthquake source could be so shallow. How could this earthquake be caused by a battleship? Hound whispered. You all know what happened next. As for the current situation of Yagunactor, I'm afraid we can only know it if we go deep into the central area of the mining area, Park Sanju said, looking at Kaylan nervously with one glance. I've told you everything I know. You won't break your promise, right? Don't worry, after all, I'm not a devil, Kaylan said. Forcing a confession is just a means, and what I want is to achieve the goal through this means. If you had been willing to speak earlier, I wouldn't have wasted so much money. Talkative. Kaylan gave Ivan a look, and Ivan immediately pushed the injection in his hand into the infusion tube. Didn't you say you won't break your promise? Seeing Ivan's actions, Park Sangu's eyes widened immediately. How did you? Don't panic, it's just a hormone. Our mission is to search and rescue survivors, not to torture and extract confessions. Every gram of what we carry must be carefully calculated. How could it contain that kind of drug? It's not possible to take it out at the beginning. Just to make a joke with you, Kaylan said. This joke is not funny at all. Within just a few seconds, a layer of fine sweat broke out on Park Sanju's forehead. Obviously he was very frightened. Leader Brita, I think our mission has been completed. Kaylan turned to Ayabrita and said, the top priority is to quickly convey the news back to ARC and escort Dr. Park Sangu out. Mining area. The purpose of the heretic sect is very clear. They came here just for this ancient battleship of an advanced civilization. Although we still don't know what happened inside the battleship. What is certain is that the heretic sect invested a lot of money in the mining area. There is no way we can stop them with just our troops. We can return to the support base first, and then find a way to get in touch with ARC. Ayabrita said. Don't forget what happened to the garrison base. Since the heretical sect can intercept the garrison base's communications, they can naturally intercept ours. Doing so is tantamount to actively exposing my whereabouts to them. I even suspect that the strong sentiment inside the mining area, the interference, is also their fault. In addition to the communication equipment we carry, the situation at those transfer stations is probably not much better. So what's your plan? First meet up with the people at the support base, and then use vehicles to rush to the Muka military base closest to the mining area. The high-power transmitting devices there are difficult to intercept. Moreover, if ARC decides to send troops to the mining area, the Mukok military base will become the forefront of this operation. Kaylan said. But the problem now is how we can bypass the heretical sex control area and withdraw from the mining area. In the previous conflict, although they failed to catch us, our traces have been exposed. If it is like Kaylan before as mentioned, if we evacuate the mining area from the other direction, we have to take a long way to get to the Mukake base. And in this way, we will not be able to meet up with the troops supporting the base. We have no vehicles and have to walk on our feet. It will take at least 15 days to get to the base. Ivan raised his head and said. And the supplies we carry with us are not enough, Layton said, staring at the electronic map closely. The 2 transfer stations on the edge of the mining area were destroyed in the earthquake. Whether we can find supplies in the ruins is completely unknown. And the nearest intact transfer station is 270 kilometers away, and we can't get there at all. At this moment, Park Sang-woo suddenly said, "Can you show me your map?" Layton glanced at Kaylan, who nodded, and then he projected the holographic image of the electronic map on the car window. The green highlighted line is our route into the mining area, the red cross mark is the point where we encountered the heretic sect, and the red dotted line area shaped like a large lemon is the control of the heretical sect calculated by the AI. Area, of course, this is the data from a few hours ago. No one knows what it looks like now, Layton explained. This is the location of the support base. Our supplies and vehicles are left here. This direction is Ian's original planned evacuation route, as you can see, is completely the opposite. We originally planned to search for supplies in the mining area, but now it seems that this method will not work. I know a passage that can be traced along the edge of the heretical sex control area. According to the scale on the map, the evacuation point is only 15 kilometers away from your support base, Park Sang-woo said. Are you sure? Now that the landscape of the entire mining area has completely changed, will the passage you mentioned still exist? Layton said with some doubt. That is an underground passage built by Alpha Civilization. The walls of the passage are all reinforced with nano-alloy skeleton. Even if it falls into magma, it will not be easily damaged, Park Sang-woo said. I think we can give it a try. Kaylan thought for a moment. Can you point out the approximate location of the passage on the map? My arm, can't lift. Layton, track the focus of Dr. Park Sang-woo's sight and mark it on the map projection, Kaylan said immediately. As Park Sang-woo's eyes moved, a winding curve appeared on the map. This curve was close to the edge of the heterodox sect-controlled area circled with red dotted lines. There were several prominent positions and it even invaded the dotted line. Inside. Isn't this too close? If this passage has been occupied by a heretic sect, wouldn't we just fall into a trap? The Hound muttered. No, the depth of the passage is more than 50 meters. It is difficult to be found except for the entrance and exit, Park Sang-woo said. But the problem is that the ground in the mining area is now cracked. The cracks are so dense that they are like shrunken chrysanthemums. Even if this passage is buried deep underground, it must have been exposed by now. The Hound shook. Shaking his head, this is too risky. This channel uses a ductile structure. We have tested it and found that the channel itself can be extended to more than twice its original length. Even if the rock formation cracks, the channel will not be torn apart. Even if they find an exposed channel, they can't enter the passage even if they can't find the entrance, Park Sang-woo continued. Tisk, that's what I said, but I always feel it's not very reliable. Hound smacked his lips and turned to Kaylan. Kaylan, you make the decision. I think we can give it a try. If we walk on the ground and cross the mining area, our supplies will not be enough. If we return the same way, we will almost 100% encounter the heretical section. This passage is our best choice at the moment. That's right, the taller one among the dwarfs. According to what you said, the other plans sound worse. The Hound stood up straight and patted the ashes on his legs. What about this guy? He can leave. Yet. The extracorporeal life support device cannot be removed for the time being. Even if it is an enhanced person, his injuries are fatal enough. Ivan shook his head. we can only carry him back to the rescue cabin and carry him away. By the way, Dr. Park Sang-woo, what is the width and height of that passage and can it allow mechas to pass through it? The width is about 10 meters, and the height, I have the impression that it is about 6 to 8 meters, but if the passage is stretched by external forces, the space should shrink a lot, Park Sang-woo recalled. That's enough, Kaylan said, check the equipment, clean up the traces on the ground, and get ready to go. Kaylan gave the order, and everyone immediately moved. Park Sang-woo was stuffed into the rescue cabin with a stretcher and a complete set of extracorporeal life support equipment. Yvonne pulled out the safety belt from the truck compartment and tied Park Sang-woo firmly to the bottom of the rescue cabin to prevent him from being damaged again due to bumps during transportation. A rocket launcher nest on the back of the Valentina mecha was removed, and the free bracket was used to secure the rescue capsule. In order to reduce bumps, Layton even removed the shock absorbers of two-wheeled drones mounted on the bottom of the stand. 2 hours and 20 minutes later, in front of the passage entrance. Is this what you mean by passable? Layton pointed at the entrance of the passage, 1/3 of which was submerged in magma, and shouted to the rescue cabin with a straight face. I don't know. There was a porthole on the door of the rescue cabin. Through the porthole, Park Shanja naturally saw the scene at the entrance. Old dog, don't be impatient yet, Kaylan pulled the irritated hound. Look, the overall trend of this passage is upward. That is to say, only the entrance section is soaked in magma. As long as it flows through in this section, all the passages behind are safe. Flow through this section? This is magma and not drinking water, so how can it flow? The hound asked. Layton, you personally modified the Valkyrie 1, right? Tell me, can this mecha move in magma? Kaylan turned to Layton and asked. If you just trek through the magma for a short time, no problem, Layton nodded. This mecha was originally a special type modified for operations in the molten mine area. All the limbs and skeleton are made of 100% 100 purity nano-alloy. For these 4 legs, I spent half a year's budget of the workshop. However, although the magma cannot melt the nano-alloy, over time, a large amount of heat will be conducted to once the cooling system on the main body of the mecha cannot lower the temperature, there will be a problem. I know this, Kaylan nodded, then stretched out his hand to gesture at the angle of the entrance to the passage. Based on the height of the magma in this rift valley, the length of the passage penetrating the magma will not exceed 100 meters, we can get there everyone, climb on the back of the mecha, adjust the power armor's cooling device to maximum power, and let's walk over on the magma. You guy, you're really crazy, although Hound cursed, he was the first to climb onto Valkyrie's back, sat down next to the rescue cabin, and slapped the hatch hard. Upper porthole. I will trust you this time. Remember, if this passage is a dead end, I will be the first to throw you into the lava. Others also climbed onto the back of the mecha one after another. After everyone had a firm grip, Valkyrie shot 2 hooks from its shoulders and fixed them on the cliff. The entire mecha began to slowly move towards the crack. The valley descends. Suddenly, an uncomfortable burning sensation swept over me. Even though the cooling device operating at maximum power was roaring crazily, it still couldn't offset all the heat. The feeling was like trapping a person inside an iron barrel. A flame blowtorch is constantly being used to roast the outside. Damn, compared to this, whatever sauna is like child's play. The hound panted and complained. Finally, Valkyrie's legs were inserted into the magma. The magma that flooded the entrance of the passage was not too deep, only about half a meter. But even so, everyone still felt that the temperature of the surface of the body increased a lot in an instant. Fortunately, I use carbon fiber armor that can withstand temperatures of more than 2600 degrees Celsius. This thing's thermal conductivity is much worse than metal, otherwise, the back of this mecha would probably be like a teppanyaki, Layton said. No need to estimate, "You can do it now." Yvonne glanced at the external temperature indicator and said calmly. "P.S. Thanks to the villain among the villains for the 500 starting coins. P.S. I just went to see Changjin Lake with my parents. I won't say much else, as it could easily be spoiled. I can only say that the filming was really good in the second half. I kept hearing faint sobbing coming from around me. Although I didn't cry, I was gritting my teeth so hard that my back molars were sore. The sentence that impressed me the most was, 'We don't fight this war, we our descendants will fight.' My grandfather was also a volunteer soldier who participated in the war to resist US aggression and aid Korea. To be honest, I had no impression of this battle when I was a child, because most of the war-related movies and TV series I watched at that time were filmed. The anti-Japanese War, or World War II, filmed by Americans. Until today, I can personally experience the cruelty and hardship of this war, as well as the greatness of the volunteer soldiers. I really wanted to write something for them, but when I started writing, I felt I was short of words. I always find it difficult to describe those heroes with words. All I can do is pay tribute to them silently in my heart. The whole film is 3 hours long, and when I walked out of the cinema, I was still not satisfied. I strongly recommend everyone to Amway Changjin Lake and the upcoming sequel Watergate Bridge. The reason why I can sit in front of the computer and code safely. The reason why people can read novels on their mobile phones is because they sacrificed their lives to get the life we have now. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 467. At the same time, on the edge of the molten mine area, the reconnaissance team supported the base. This temporary support base is located on a condescending hill. The 4-meter-high walls are all surrounded by foldable alloy armor plates. There are 2 6-meter-wide entrances and exits at the front and rear. However, there were no gates installed at these 2 entrances and exits. Instead, there were 2 heavy armored vehicles. The giant buckets hung on the front of the armored vehicles to open roads and clear obstacles directly blocked the entire entrance and exit. On both sides of the armored vehicle, there are 2 door-god-like humanoid tactical mechas half-squatting. Each mecha is equipped with dual-wielding rapid-fire railguns. The head monitor is constantly turning, scanning back and forth around the base area. The infantry was divided into 3 shifts and took turns manning the wall. There is a shooting hole every 6 meters in the wall. Protruding from these shooting holes are the barrels of 25mm caliber machine guns. 8 military drones are hovering at a safe height above the base. Each drone is equipped with 4 heavy machine guns and remotely controlled guided missiles. In terms of instantaneous firepower alone, they are even more powerful than dual-wielding railguns. The mecha is even better. Not to mention the 3rd level standard, the defense level of this support base is already close to the 4th level. The disposable consumables used to build fortifications can cost as much as a standard-sized transfer station for 3 years. Maintenance costs are gone. Anyway, this expenditure is reimbursed by the Security Bureau, and Kaylan will not worry about saving the budget at all. If the heavy cruiser that sent them had not had other tasks to perform, he would even have planned to let the cruiser stay as air support for the base. Afternoon, 13:48. Even at the edge, the day and night in the molten mine area are still unclear. During the day, the sunlight cannot penetrate the thick lead-gray clouds. At night, the light emitted by the hot magma illuminates the sky was dyed a dark red. This didn't look like the scenery that should be seen in the human world, but it was quite similar to the hell in mythology. A soldier squatting on the wall on duty lowered his head and glanced at his watch. The thermometer showed that the temperature near the support base had reached 93.6 degrees Celsius, which was 2 degrees higher than when they just landed from the battleship. He touched the metal wall in front of him, and a hot feeling passed through the thick protective gloves to his palms. He thought for a while, then took out a piece of compressed dry food from his backpack, tore off the aluminum foil package and placed it on the wall. Superior. As soon as the dry food came into contact with the armor plate, it made a sizzling sound, and the oil contained in it melted and flowed instantly. As for the edges of the solid object, it quickly became charred. He opened a gap in the mask and a heat wave mixed with the smell of burning and sulfur suddenly poured into the helmet. Ahem! The soldier was choked and coughed twice, and quickly closed his mask. The moment he raised his head, a dozen figures in protective clothing suddenly appeared in his field of vision. This discovery made the soldier immediately nervous. He raised his gun and pointed it at the figures who suddenly appeared. Report. This is post number 3. A suspicious target was found due west. There are about 15 people in humanoid form. They came out of the mining area and are slowly approaching the base. About 15 people? Are they Mr. Kaylan and team leader Britta? The voice of a superior officer came from the intercom. No. It's not like that, the soldier replied. He quickly adjusted the magnification of the scope, and then pointed it at the people who came out of the mining area. They are not our people. They are wearing civilian protective clothing, and I didn't see that Valkyrie mecha either. Please give me instructions. Are they exiles? Or survivors from the garrison base? The officer asked. Unconfirmed. I can't contact them here, and there is no response to the communication requests sent out. Everyone is on alert. They may be enemies. But without my order, no one is allowed to shoot, the officer said. Quickly he ran up the wall. Captain, they are still approaching, what should we do? The soldier looked back at the officer who ran up the wall and asked. Wait a minute. The officer raised the telescope. However, these people were all wrapped in protective clothing and could not see their faces at all. There were no identifiable marks or emblems on their bodies. It was impossible to observe them with the naked eye. Identify the gang. Let's do this. Let's fire 2 warning shots first. If it's a survivor, it should stop where it is immediately. If it's an enemy. Boom. Boom. The soldier fired 2 shots with a sniper rifle. The bullet landed less than 5 meters directly in front of the path of these people. The broken rock fragments even splashed onto the 2 people walking in the front. But they didn't stop. On the contrary, these people suddenly sped up and ran towards the base. It's the enemy. Everyone, permission to fire, the officer shouted sternly. The only human beings that can be encountered here, apart from the survivors, are the exiles wandering in the wilderness. Moreover, these are not ordinary exiles, but a group of dangerous elements loyal to the heretical sect. Several machine cannons directed in this direction rang out instantly, and the dense rain of bullets directly tore the bodies of these people into pieces. The mutilated limbs, minced meat, and internal organs were splashed everywhere, and the spilled blood just touched the ground. Vaporized, in less than 2 seconds, these dozen people of unknown origin were already dead. The large-caliber machine cannon didn't even leave them with a whole body. But at the next moment, these smashed corpses started to squirm on the ground, and countless tentacles grew wildly from the flesh and blood. There are containers of seed of corrosion among these people. No, they are all containers. All of them, a female soldier wearing heavy power armor screamed. Keep calm. Don't panic. We are not facing the erosion seeds all at once. There are not many enemies and they cannot pose a threat to us. Everyone, change to active ammunition, the officer shouted. Driven by the tentacles, these corpses suddenly became much faster, and they rushed to the support base in the blink of an eye. The soldier who first discovered the enemy removed the regular magazine and replaced it with a magazine with a black and yellow biohazard mark. But when he picked up the gun again, he suddenly froze. According to the training content, before using active ammunition to shoot, the body of the corrosion seed must be broken open with conventional weapons to expose its core. No matter how bad it is, we must determine the location of the nucleus and shoot at this location. Otherwise, the toxicity produced by the charge of a single bullet would not be enough to kill a mature corrosive. But now, Each container has been split into at least a dozen corpse pieces, large and small, and each piece of corpse has turned into an independent seed of erosion. This situation is something that soldiers have never seen in training tutorials. I have seen it in, these things don't even have a fixed shape, so how can we determine the position of the core? Sir, I cannot determine the location of the core. No need to be sure, just carry out saturation shooting. 1 round of active ammunition is not toxic enough, so fire 10 rounds, the officer said calmly. We have sufficient ammunition reserves. On the other side, deep in the molten mine area, is the entrance to the passage. Valkyrie 1 trudged hard in the magma. Although this machine body has undergone extensive modifications, it is still far from a true all-terrain mecha. Like the tarantula with a mecha with 8 legs, there is no need to worry about the balance of the body. The Valkyrie with only 4 legs must be careful every time it lands. As long as one leg is missing, the entire body may lose its balance and fall into the magma. Everyone sitting on the back of the mecha tolerated the high temperature by default. Even the noisiest hound on weekdays was too hot to speak at this time. His face was flushed, as if blood would drip at any time, and his dry eyes continued to blinking. The sparse eyebrows were even curled up due to the perm. Ian's condition is not much better than him. Although his body's recovery ability is different from ordinary people, his sensory organs are still the same as ordinary people. Lan can also feel the heat coming from the outside. In powered armor, the internal temperature has exceeded 75 degrees Celsius. As soon as the coolant pumped out of the cooling device enters the heat pipe, it instantly turns into boiling water. Compared with the heat transferred in from the outside, it's just a drop in the bucket. The beeping of the high temperature alarm kept ringing in everyone's ears, but no one made a sound, and no one urged Valentina to speed up, except for the frame made of nano alloy. The passage, most of the main structure has been melted by magma, and only the skeleton part is a reliable foothold. As for other parts, it may collapse at any time under stress. In the mecha cockpit, although the temperature can still be controlled below 40 degrees Celsius, Valentina's driving suit has been completely soaked with sweat. On her back, chest, waist, and abdomen, and the inside of her legs, there were originally the light gray driving suit material was completely soaked and turned into dark gray. You must know that this material is extremely sweat absorbent. The suction power of those diapers in TV commercials that are so hyped is compared to this driving suit. A younger brother, but now, sweat is constantly seeping out from the surface of the driving suit. After the mecha competition, Valentina grew her ear-length hair a little longer. At this moment, the ends of her hair on her forehead and temples were stuck together with sweat, and strands were hanging on her head. Superior. A few longer hairs kept getting into the corners of her eyes, but she had no time to reach out and brush them away. If I had known earlier, it would be better to shave my head. She breathed rapidly, and the old wounds in her lungs began to hurt, but she did not dare to inject painkillers herself. Although painkillers could block the transmission of pain by nerves, they would also numb her senses and make her reactions become sluggish. What she needs is operation accurate to the millimeter, and this kind of interference is undoubtedly fatal to her. A 2-liter water bag hung at the top of the cockpit. Valentina bit the straw of the water bag in her mouth. While replenishing water, her eyes were fixed on the sensor data on the 4 legs of the body. Push the joystick. Under the interference of magma, the role of the sensor is extremely limited. She must rely on the force transmitted back from the joystick to determine whether the foothold belongs to the skeleton. The force of the test must be controlled very accurately. If the force is light, the feedback results will be meaningless. If the force is too strong, it will easily trample the bottom directly. This battle is completely different. When fighting the enemy, Valentina will rely on her terrifying fighting instinct to control the body and use many seemingly unconventional movements to launch unexpected attacks. In that case, the limbs of the machine are like extensions of her hands and feet. To use a commonly used description in novels, It is human and machine becoming one, which is the strongest state of a pilot, but in the current situation, she cannot giving control to her own instincts, she must accurately manipulate the body to make a series of movements without even a trace of deviation. Valentina couldn't help but think of a kind of art she had seen on TV. It was a work carved from rice grains. The carving tool was a steel needle thinner than a hair. The sculptor's he is already gray-haired and his face is covered with deep ravines, but his hands are surprisingly steady. The steel needle is pinched on his fingertips. No trembling can be seen at all with the naked eye. Every time it falls, it is precise. Got to be just right. Controlling the mecha to wade through the magma, Valentina felt like the sculptor holding a steel needle. Finally, after advancing about 120 meters, the depth of the magma dropped to about 10 centimeters, and its surface began to show signs of condensation. Looking up, the passage leading to it had completely gotten rid of the magma, exposing the original ground. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Finally it's out, I'm about to be hummed by a roaster. The hound complained. Just think of it as a free sauna session. Sweating more is good for your health. Leighton patted the hound on the shoulder and comforted him. Others didn't even bother to talk, they took out their straws and started sipping. P.S. Thanks to the villain in the villain for the 500 starting coins. By the way, this guy has been giving me rewards for several days in a row. If you are a student party who has not experienced an independent party, I think you should still use this. Keep the money and spend it yourself. As long as I can support genuine reading, I will be happy, but if you are already working and have your own disposable income, then I will just treat what I just said as fart. I would like to reiterate to you all again, underage readers, please do not tip me, and please do not tip me on iPhones, although I admit that I like money very much. In the former, you are spending your parents' money, and in the latter, most of the reward money goes into the pockets of Americans. A gentleman loves money, so he should use it wisely, right? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 468. Lighten, measure the inclination and ductility of the tunnel, K-Lan said. Although Park Sang-woo said that the tunnel could be extended to more than twice its length, K-Lan still believed in the actual measured data. The inclination of the tunnel is 28.5 degrees, which is 30 degrees if rounded up. The depth of where we are now is about 50 meters. According to the formula, we can reach the surface by walking almost 100 meters forward, Leighton said. In addition, I used a probe to test the strength and ductility of the tunnel. I can only say that the technology of Alpha civilization is much better than ours. Maybe twice as much is a relatively conservative figure, in my opinion. Look, extending 3 to 4 times the length is not a problem at all. And the air tightness and heat insulation can also be guaranteed. I really don't know how they built this tunnel. You mean, if we walk another 100 meters, we'll reach the ground, said the hound. Wouldn't that be exposed? No, the premise of Leighton's algorithm is that this must be a straight, rigid tunnel. K-Lan shook his head. I asked him to measure the inclination just to determine the settlement of the main body of the tunnel when the rock layer is severely cracked. Depth and tensile stress performance. Judging from the current situation, even if the entire ground sinks into the magma, as long as the exit is still on the ground, the tunnel will be safe. I don't understand. Hound shook his head. Settlement depth, stress resistance, it sounds like terms only used by those who study civil engineering. Did you still make a living on a construction site before? Because I am interested in the ruins of the Alpha civilization, I have also read some books on architecture and geology. These two data are very important safety indicators in the two fields of architecture, mainly related to the depth of the foundation and the construction. It is related to its own stress-bearing structure. Of course, it also applies to some buildings built under the surface. Can you make it simpler? Hound interrupted K. Ian's tirade. It's about whether the location and structure of the building are strong enough. The stronger the building, the more resistant it is to grass. Is this straightforward enough? Wouldn't it be over if you said that earlier? Hound rolled his eyes. You have to ask yourself. Kaylan made an international friendly gesture to the hound somewhat speechlessly. Okay, just think I farted, okay, the hound muttered to himself as he took out a can from his backpack. Damn, I ran around hungry for a day, and there was nothing before. It felt like I was safe for the time being, and I realized that my stomach was almost so damn deflated that my chest was touching my back. But when the hound opened the mask, a suffocating smell of sulfur suddenly entered his nasal cavity, which made him choke and burst into tears. He even dropped the can in his hand to the ground and rolled down the slope. Finally fell into the semi-solidified magma, and a series of sheesh sounds came out. Cough cough, damn, cough cough, in this passage, damn, cough cough, the air is poisonous. Isn't this normal? Layton said while chewing food. The moment he opened the mask, he closed his eyes, held his breath, and quickly stuffed the food into his mouth. He closed the mask and waited until the air circulation system removed the toxic gas from the helmet before he dared to resume breathing. Cough cough, I was careless, cough cough. The hound coughed hard. His sense of smell was already very sensitive, and the stimulation he received was naturally stronger than that of others. Everyone rested in place for 5 minutes, ate something briefly, and then began to move forward along the tunnel. There are lighting devices in the tunnel. These lighting devices can be activated with energy crystals. Only a small piece of the lowest level energy crystal is needed to light up a tunnel tens of meters long. Kaylan is not stingy with this crystal. Every time he found a groove for energy supply, he would stuff a first level energy crystal into it. These lighting devices are all round and have no blind spots, just like the shadowless lights in the operating room. Even the ground under their feet is embedded with light sources. When Kaylan walked inside, he suddenly thought of a scene from an old movie. The name of that movie is Resident Evil, and there is a similar passage in it. The 4 walls of the passage are made of glass and mirrors. The top, bottom, left and right are filled with light tubes. At the end of the passage is a locked safety door. Of course, this is not the key. The most terrible thing is that the high-speed moving cutting laser will be generated in the channel. This laser can even form a dense network, covering all the space in the channel. Several of the mercenaries who entered the laboratory with the protagonist died under this deadly laser. Even one of the bosses ended up being buried in this laser corridor. Could it be that Alpha civilization also has a similar mechanism? Kaylan raised his head and looked at the 4 walls of the tunnel. If the glass walls in the movie can be broken, then the strength of the material used in this tunnel is not comparable to that of glass. Moreover, even if they have the ability to break the tunnel, there is also a thick rock formation outside the wall. If you are not lucky, there may be magma pouring in. If you really encounter that kind of mechanism, you won't even have anywhere to run. By the way, Dr. Park Sang-woo, you have explored this tunnel several times. Have you ever walked through it all at once? Have any devices such as mechanisms been triggered? Kaylan asked Park Sang-woo worriedly. I just walked back and forth by myself. There are no mechanisms. It's very safe. If there is any equipment, it's probably just these lighting equipment. Park Sang-woo, who was lying in the rescue cabin, replied, Are you worried that there will be something wrong, a trap? To say that I'm not worried is just a lie. I don't know if it's a trick in the brain or what. The Alpha people especially like to set up various traps inside their own buildings, except for the lowest level residential areas. The more important the place, the higher the degree of danger. And tunnels like this, which have unknown uses but cost so much high-end materials, must have some important role for them. You have to say that each of you. I wouldn't be surprised if a trap is set every 3 steps, Hound answered for Kaylan. It is also possible that this is a common passage used by Alpha people in the mining area. The expert team once speculated that this tunnel is likely to be a fast passage used to transport nano-alloy, just like the bridges we built on Earth. Just like roads, it's not unusual for infrastructure facilities like this to use high-end materials, Park Sang-woo said. Military bases and laboratories may set up a large number of mechanisms to prevent outsiders from entering, but on a road that is used every day you won't be digging a lot of pits, right? Hey, although I'm reluctant. Hound shook his neck vigorously, but I have to say, your words really make sense. At this moment, Leighton, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped and raised his arm. There seems to be something ahead. Is it an enemy? The Hound turned around instantly, skillfully picked up the firearm hanging on his chest, and pointed it at the tunnel directly ahead. I don't know, it seems to be someone who fell to the ground. Leighton said as he threw out the drone, sped out with a car with 4 wheels larger than the main body, and then jumped suddenly when it got up. 4 blue flames shot out from the bottom and stuck directly to the top wall of the tunnel. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the footage transmitted back by the drone. It was 3 human beings lying on the ground whose life and death were unknown. The protective suits they wore all had the logo of the base. They are one of our own, but their heartbeat cannot be detected. They should be dead, Hound said. Let's go over and take a look. Kaylan picked up the gun and ran towards the 3 corpses first. The 3 deceased were all men, aged between 35 and 40. According to Ivan's autopsy results and the almost zero barometer reading on the oxygen tank, it can be known that the cause of death of the 3 was asphyxiation due to lack of oxygen. I guess I was in a hurry when I evacuated and didn't remember to bring enough oxygen concentrators. Looking at the attire, he seems to be a researcher at the base. Could he be a colleague of that stick? Hound inspected the body and said. It's easy. Just ask team leader Britta to scan the facial features of these 3 people. Although the faces of the 3 deceased were severely distorted due to the pain of suffocation, the identification method adopted by the Security Bureau was mainly based on the bone structure, what is commonly known as bone appearance rather than skin appearance. In this way, some wanted criminals can still be identified even after wearing makeup and microplastic surgery. Unless they have the courage to undergo extensive surgery on their facial bones, they may be able to escape the Security Bureau's facial recognition device. It was found out, these 3 people are Dr. Bernferry, an aerodynamics expert and senior researcher at the Institute, Dr. Muller von Gudryan, an expert in architecture and archaeology of ruins, a mid-level researcher at the Institute. There is also one named Hwang Rong-seun, although he is not a staff member of the Institute, but he is an authority in the field of alpha technology. His name was among the team that cracked the energy crystal converter. Ayabrita said. Good guy, any one of these 3 people is a well-known figure in the field. This man is called Bernferry. He has published several articles about spacecraft in Aircraft magazine before. There is a paper on how to use ship vector thrusters in combination with anti-gravity devices. He does have unique insights in this regard. I also referred to his design ideas when I modified Valkyrie. I didn't expect them to die in here. Leighton sighed with some regret. But before Kaylan could say anything, Park Sang-woo in the rescue cabin suddenly shouted, What? Whose body did you find? I think I heard you talking about Mueller and Bourne. What's wrong? Do you know these people? Bernferry, Muller von Gudryan and Hwang Rong-seun, we found their bodies, Leighton replied. What did you say? Park Sang-woo's reaction was like being struck by lightning. Are you sure it's the bodies of the 3 of them? Did you admit it? That's right. There are names and identification codes on the badges hanging on their chests. We also scanned their facial features, and they match the files kept by the Security Bureau, Leighton said. Judging from the files, Dr. Park Sang-woo and the 3 of them were transferred to the molten mine area at the same time. They should have also participated in the project to restart Yaguna Kotar and were colleagues of Dr. Park Sang-woo, Aya said. he said while looking through the files. Put me down, I want to see them with my own eyes. I don't believe it, Park Sang-woo shouted. Sigh, I really can't do anything about you. Do these three people have a good relationship with you? Why are you so excited? Layton sighed, removed the rescue capsule from the bracket, put it upright on the ground, and let the cabin the porthole on the door can just face the three corpses lying on the ground. Well, you can see for yourself whether it is true or not. By the way, haven't you already acquiesced that everyone is dead except you? Why are you reacting so loudly now? Kaylan also looked at Park Sang-woo with some confusion. Through the porthole, he could see his facial muscles trembling continuously, as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. He hesitated for a long time and then said, They are indeed my colleagues, and participants in the Restart project, but they don't deserve to die here. Yes, they are all rare talents. It is indeed a pity to die here, but what has already happened, and no one can resurrect them. You have to accept this reality. Layton held onto the rescue capsule and offered consolation. Road. No. I didn't mean that, Park Sang-woo shouted hysterically. They were three of the four experts who voluntarily entered the magma channel. How could their bodies appear here? Woolen cloth. As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings suddenly fell into silence. Are you not mistaken? Are you sure they entered the magma channel? Hound broke the silence first. Are you too nervous and remembered wrongly? This place, and the number 1 magma lake in the center of the mining area, it's thousands of miles apart. No. I watched them get into the vehicle with my own eyes. I still remember Muller telling me before departure that if he couldn't come back, he asked me to help him save the 2 articles in the computer before it was too late. The published paper is published, damn it. Why is he here? This is impossible. Impossible. It's not completely impossible. Kaylan suddenly said, that ancient battleship once hovered over the mining area for a while, right? Could they have taken this opportunity to escape and come here? P.S. Thanks to Renjit 12315, the helper who can't survive for 3 minutes for the 1,500 starting coins, thanks to book friend 2019060408553578 for the 1,000 starting coins. As for the reader whose ID is called the sidekick who can't live for 3 minutes, if you see this, you can leave a message in this chapter and I can arrange a character for you, the kind who can only live for 2 minutes and 59 at most seconds as a sidekick. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 469. On the edge of the molten mine area, the reconnaissance team support base. After replacing the active ammunition, after only 2 rounds of firing, the corpse pieces stopped charging. The active cells of flesh-eating worms are extremely poisonous to corrosive species, even mutant species. The shot corpse squirmed and twitched, and the necrotic parts began to spread from the inside to the outside. In less than 2 minutes, all the tentacled flesh and blood turned into pus, and then evaporated by the high temperature on the surface. Huh. The soldier holding the sniper rifle breathed a sigh of relief, moved his eyes away from the scope, raised his head, and looked at the battlefield below. Except for the fragments of protective suits torn apart by machine guns, the containers of erosion seeds did not leave any traces. Their bodies will become extremely fragile after death, let alone in the harsh environment of molten mines. Yes, even in a sterile incubator in a laboratory, the corpse of the corrosion seed will decompose on its own within a short period of time. He remembered that an expert on erosion seeds said that after the nucleus of cells in erosion seeds completely dies, the apoptosis program embedded in the genes will be activated. Most of the creatures currently known to mankind, whether they are creatures on Earth or on planet Alpha, including humans themselves, even if the brain dies, cells in other tissues of the body can still survive for a period of time. The so-called organ transplantation, tissue culture, and other operations are all feasible based on this characteristic, but for the erosion seed, as long as the nucleus stops functioning, all the cells of the individual will be destroyed within a few days. Dead within seconds, they are as determined as the soldiers who died for their country in ancient times, and will end their lives without hesitation. It is for this reason that experiments to study erosion seeds must use living specimens. Accidents of living specimens breaching containment occur almost every year in the Institute. Just 3 months ago, their team completed a specimen cleaning tasks. The expert also said that the reason why the self-destruction program-like fragment was written into the genes of the corrosion seeds is that the Alpha civilization did not want this biochemical weapon to cause too much pollution to the natural environment. Although this explanation sounded ridiculous to the soldiers, the expert looked very serious when he said this. The expert also told the soldier something, but the soldier could no longer remember it. He was just a soldier, and all he needed to do was obey orders, pull the trigger, and kill these monsters. As for how these monsters were created, what is the purpose of making it, this has nothing to do with him. The soldier himself is not very interested in these things, and his talent is not enough to make him a research talent. Instead, because of his excellent shooting performance, he was assigned to the position of sniper by the army, initially in the Guards Corps, was later transferred to the elite combat force of the Field Corps. His knowledge of seeds of corrosion may not be as good as that of an intern who had just entered the institute, but the seeds of corrosion who died under his gun, but there are already as many as 19. If the 2 corpses just now could be counted as 2 independent individuals, they would be 20. Don't let your guard down. The officer held up a telescope in his hand. Our position has been exposed, and the firefight may attract more enemies. Stay alert and be ready to fight at any time. Just when he finished saying this, a dozen more figures rushed out of the mining area in the northwest direction of the support base. They were on all fours, running extremely fast, and none of them wore any protective equipment. They are not humans. They are not containers. They are mature erosion seeds. It seems, they seem to be mutants. It's Type B mutants, the officer shouted. Suppress them with drone fire and slow them down. Use active ammunition firearms to focus fire and kill them, and attack those at the front first. Type B mutant. The soldier quickly picked up the sniper rifle and put the corrosive species rushing at the front into the crosshairs of the scope. This corrosive species was similar to the common corrosive species that was made of meat, and unlike the monsters that mainly have tentacles and whose shape is somewhere between an octopus and an anemone, they still maintain their human form, and the soldiers can even recognize the original appearance of the container. This is a dark-skinned young man with an ochre-red birthmark on his left cheek. His nose and mouth still retain their original appearance, but 2 transparent tentacles protruded from the eye sockets. There are more than a dozen eyeballs of different sizes embedded inside. During the process of running at high speed, these eyeballs are constantly rotating to capture the surrounding vision. The largest eyeball even looks through the sniper rifle scope, and the soldiers looked at each other briefly. The soldier felt a sudden numbness on his scalp, and the hairs on his back stood up. He didn't know whether the thing's eyeballs could really lock onto a target several hundred meters while moving at high speed, or whether it was just a coincidence. Only then did their eyes hit each other. These Type B mutants are almost perfectly integrated with the container. While inheriting the advantages of the human body, they have also significantly modified it, turning it into a more offensive weapon. The length of their hind limbs has been shortened by nearly half, but the length of the metatarsals has increased several times, forming a structure similar to a recurve joint. Note 1. This structure is characterized by extremely strong explosive force. Said it is running, but in fact it is more like jumping. Every time its powerful hind limbs kick the ground, the body can fly forward nearly 10 meters. PS Note 1, regarding the recurvature joint, I used to think that the bending direction of the knee joint of the horse's hind limbs is opposite to that of humans. However, after seeing the skeletal structure diagram of the horse, you will find that the knee joint of the horse is actually very close to the hip. The length of its metatarsal bones is about the same as that of the femur and calf bones, so many people think that the horse's reversely bent knee joints are actually its ankles. Humans can also simulate this posture, just stand on tiptoes, but our ankles are too low, so it doesn't look very obvious, and the advantage when exerting force is not as good as that of horses. But even so, when running short distances, the rear solace of the athletes will not touch the ground. Only the front solace and even the toes will touch the ground. This is very similar to when a horse is running. P.S. Thanks for the 1,500 starting coins from the helper who couldn't survive for 3 minutes, thanks to 211-9233 for the 500 starting coins. By the way, if you want a supporting role, brother, you must at least leave a name.